Have you ever actually wondered how the relationship was between Adam and God? I think many people seem to forget the original true story that is not included in canonical biblical texts. What I'm talking about is when Adam was on this earth and God was distant from Adam, so there was a gap. But Adam already had Eve, so you got to think about it. We're talking about this period in time that you can find in Genesis, but it's so essential that it's very questionable why it's been left out by the Catholic Institute. So I'm going to get into the story and I'm going to share my own opinion, and then we're going to come to a conclusion, and I'm going to leave you with a question. So at a point, Adam and Eve were finding shelter in a cave. They had everything they needed. They had, fresh water from a stream. They had fresh fruits from trees, and had companionship and friendship and love from animals around them. So everything was kind of like this idyllic utopia. And God was overseeing them, not being too far away, but still not being close either. And at some point, Adam feels like, okay, every need seems to be fulfilled. I've got God overseeing me. I've got Eve being my helper, my mate, my companion, my second half. Two parts of a coin, two sides of a coin. I've got animals that I can rely on, that I can learn from, that I can, interact with in a non-aggressive way. And then I've got the earth, the trees and the plants nourishing me. So all my needs are actually met up with. I don't have to do anything specific. I just have to exist and live and be in God's presence. But now the problem arises, and this is actually a problem of mental health crisis. People are going to be like, what are you talking about? But this is an essential part, what nobody talked about before. That's why this video is essential, to come to understand essentials about the nature of Adam in the early days of existence, while being surrounded by all the needs. So he woke up out of a nightmare, and he remembered that before he came into existence, right, he didn't have a physical body, a flesh body, an earthly body, a body that's made out of material, a body that can be hurt, wounded, destroyed, and even consumed by the soil. It was a light body. Now, in that light body, he wasn't really spirit anymore and being with God, but he wasn't fully incarnated in a flesh sustainable body to roam around and do whatever and experience the world. So it's an in-between state. If I have to describe it into how you would see it with your eyes, it's literally white, white, you are white, but there is a golden glow around you. And that is what is called a light body. So when he was coming to this world, becoming a part of this world, he felt so disconnected because he was not anymore as protected by the energy, by God, that he felt too distant and became depressed. And what he tried to do is he tried to commit suicide. And people are going to be like, how is that possible? Why isn't it mentioned in the Bible? Because why would they want you to read that? Why do you think that the Roman Catholic Church doesn't want you to know where we came from and how we get incarnated into a physical body, how the process goes, the procedure is? There is a reason why they don't want you. The more you forget, the less you remember, the better it is. That's why indoctrinating children from when they come out of the womb is the best part for them. That's why they had all these schools, these boarding schools and these institutes and whatever. It's because children are more aware and sensitive and know more in that realm about that part of existence before than adults do, because we get corrupted by the world. Children aren't corrupted yet, but they are corruptible. So to get back on track, so he remembers as a light body coming down and forming and coming to the physical part, the human body part. And because he was depressed, he was like, oh, I'm disconnected, I'm not longer in the presence of God, I don't have the protective aura, I'm not in his presence. I don't feel good. I feel terrible. I feel miserable. I don't want this. This is not what I want. This is not how it should be. And what happened is he tried to commit suicide. He tried to, jump off a cliff. He tried to, bash his head, break his neck, like do all these accidental things like you do when you play, for example, with an action figure, bend their head, break their arm, you know what I mean? Like that type of stuff in the hope that he could return as soon as possible back to God. But of course, because it wasn't actually physically incarnated yet, he was immortal, so it didn't have any effect. So it's basically you feel like you have some substance, some material, but it's not actually part of this plane. It just makes you be able to be present. And people probably gonna remember this story and compare it to when Christ came back to show himself to, after resurrection, to the disciples, to the Holy 12. And it's actually the same thing. It is a light body that is materialized, but at the same time, it's not physical like flesh. So it's in between. So Adam tried to, do it a couple of times and it didn't work and made things worse. And that's actually where the whole decision making came, that God told Adam, like, look, I'm going to provide you with a helper, I'm gonna bring you your second half. I'm going to give you the part that you're missing. It's kind of like a substitute. So actually one God, the God was, okay, you're just missing something, so I'm going to give you a partner, your wife, Eve, and you're going to feel that completion again by participating in a relationship, by coming together and being one. And that helped him be more accepting and understanding, looking forward into the incarnation procedure. So when he was like, okay, first I'm alone, now I'm in a physical body, but now I know Eve is going to be there soon as well, because we already discussed it. That's why if you look at Genesis, he says like, oh, Eve, finally you're there. So God already told me what would happen, and he was just waiting until that moment would arrive. But that was like a substitution to not feeling so lonely and not being, having these mental health issues. And it's interesting to see that even, first creation, as in the sense in Homo sapien, actually went through something that is so common in today's day and era. And if you think about it, what is the most problematic thing that is on the rise for the majority being young men, and men in general in Western countries? It is mental health problems. It's struggling mentally and having suicidal thoughts and having the need to not participate, not be a part, giving up, self-deleting. Like all these things became so mainstream that we can backtrack it to the first version of ourselves in time. That's crazy. Just think about it, it's crazy. So, to come to the final conclusion, yes, Adam at a certain point in life was immortal. Everything that happened afterwards was in agreement by participating and being in a dialogue with God. For example, the nudity part in the shame part wasn't a literal thing that happened. It was just understanding that now we're present, we have a physical body, we have a gross body, we have flesh, this flesh coating. It's not the same as a light body, it's not the same as spirit. So that means that we're vulnerable because we're disconnected from the ultimate source, God. We don't have the protection barrier anymore. We're actually at risk, And that realization makes you want to cover up, makes you want to protect yourself, makes you want to put on armor, makes you want to, have a shield, have a sword. That mentality, that mindset comes from that. Because if you just think about it, if you would just be laying you would wake up in a forest and you wouldn't have anything, nothing handmade, nothing we created, then you feel pretty vulnerable. You're not going to feel comfortable walking around like that. You want to immediately do something about it, and it's because you don't have that protection that we used to have. Something that it's kind of similar like babies in the womb. Babies in the womb and that sensation, the feeling of protection, security, in comparison with babies coming outside of the womb, it's such a big contrast. It's insane. Nobody talks about it into depth, but it's the same procedure. So what I would say as a conclusion is that the early existence of the first Homo sapiens sapien, aka Adam, is very essential to understand the story, the relationship, the connection and interaction with God, and also what teaches us the incarnation process for all human beings, and why we are in distress, why we have mental health issues, why we have a longing, why we need specific needs to be met up with, why we have this craving, why we need partnership, why we need intimacy, why we need love. All these things stem from the original source of existence before we come. So we already have that within ourselves. But the next thing is just to try to find it in the world. And that's actually the biggest challenge, is understanding love, knowing what love is, and finding it in this world and experiencing it as it should be. It's one of the biggest struggles and challenges for all human beings, if you think about it. I'm gonna leave you with that. So let me know in the comment section what you think. How do you feel about this story? How do you feel about it? How do you see it? Does that change your perspective on scripture? Does it change your position in life? Does it change your outlook on the ultimate destination? Does it change how you see God and your relationship with God? And what's the next step you're gonna do? Is it gonna help you along the way? Did it make you more aware? Gave you more insight and understanding? Or did it just make you confused? Let me know in the comment section. I'll be seeing you next time.